Regardless of whatever SAT you're taking, this video is going to be applicable to you because essentially what I'm going to cover is how to build a proper plan for having 1 month or 2 months left for the SAT, what exactly to cover so you can maximize your score. But specifically, if you're taking the paper SAT, it's going extinct. You're never going to be able to take the paper SAT again. So if you want to take advantage of all the preparation you've been doing, your last chance to take the paper SAT is December, right? And you can also take it in November as a trial run, right? And seniors, know that you can submit the November SAT in your college portals late to be considered in early action decisions and a few early decisions, right? So, but wherever you're starting from, right? Whether you've taken one in the past or you haven't taken one at all, this is how I'd manage my time with only having a little bit of time left, right? 1 to 2 months to maximize my score the most, to create the most effective plan to get work done. So hi, I'm Karthik. This is how to crush the SAT in 1 to 2 months. All right. First of all, you have to figure out your baseline, your exact baseline. And here's what you can use, right? You can use your most recently taken exam, right? If you took October or if you took the August SAT, you can use your scores from that, right? And if you haven't gotten them yet, you can use a practice exam that you've taken extremely recently, right? Preferably after this exam, or if you haven't taken an exam at all, just your most recent practice test, or you can take one currently, or my preferred method, which is a QAS, right? And basically what it is like old QASs from past years. So basically what these are just like score reports from past exams that have the full question answer. And you can find them, it's actually very difficult to find them online. You just have to scour a lot. You have to look up the right things or go on the SAT Reddit to be able to find it. And it's still very hard to find it, but you might be able to encounter some like 2022, 2021 old exams to take. And basically what that's going to do is determine where you stand. And from there, right, when you're determining where you stand, you need to look at a bunch of key pieces of information that's going to tell you what you need to work on and what your biggest constraint is, right? So the first thing that's going to tell you what you need to work on, probably the most essential piece of information, because it's so quantitative and it's not really like up to you, your thinking, is your score breakdown, your reading, grammar, math score breakdown. So for math, it's essentially the whole section. You don't really care about specifically what your thing is between calculator and no calculator. What you do care about is the questions that you got wrong and why you got them wrong, right? You need to figure that out. For reading and grammar, you want the full ERW score, right? Because you want to figure out exactly what questions, right, in terms of math and grammar, do you get wrong more. And that's going to tell you a priority, whether you should focus on reading or grammar entirely or math entirely or a mix of both, depending on how off they are, right? Because if I have like an 800 in reading section, but I have like a 500 in math, I'm going to pour all my resources into math. So the differences between the score, they're going to tell you exactly how much priority to put to each one. And for reading, grammar specifically, right, what you're going to do is figure out what's your breakdown in between then, and you figure out within the reading score what do you need to prioritize within that, right? How you felt about your sections, right? So how do you feel about each individual section? Do you feel like it was hard, easy, difficult, and combine that with what you actually got? Because if you think it's hard but you did pretty well, there are probably some key like things that you're misunderstanding, misdoing, right? You just need to figure out what that is. How you felt about the section is not the best predictor, but what it is going to be like a good predictor of, I'm going to go on talk about in one of the next slides, right? But additionally, your biggest constraint, right? And this is where that previous idea, how you felt about the section, like supplements this, right? It doesn't fully do it, right? But basically what your biggest constraint is we're going to try to figure out when you took that exam or when you did whatever you did, what was your biggest constraint? Did you run out of time? Did you not fully understand the questions? Were you unable to do the math problem, right? What was that thing? Was it time? Was it skill? Or were you unsure of it, right? You need to figure out exactly what that is, and that's going to help you pinpoint exactly what things you need to do in your practice to make it the most effective, right? And essentially, I've already covered this, but you give priority to certain sections based on all the grammar breakdowns, the math, reading, grammar, whatever that is, you break down, and then that's how you split up your time, and how you actually use that time is based on your biggest constraint, right? And that's basically going to tell you if you belong in the learning phase or in the practice phase, right? The learning phase is where you actually learn these skills. The practice phase is where you actually practice progressively harder problems with them, right? Okay, effective practice. The two main things that are going to help you have effective practice is accurate material and practicing based on your constraint. I still see so many people, some of my own students, wanting to use non-accurate material just because it's out there and it's easy to use. And the reason why I hate that, right, and why I think it's so useless is because every single SAT question is built with this like specific guideline. There's like a huge sheet of things that the SAT needs to include, can't include, must be about, with a phrasing that must be used. There's a list of acceptable phrases. Like there's so many specific things to the SAT that pretty much no one knows except for the question makers, right? And essentially what it is you make those questions, right? You essentially, they make those questions and they give it to you and it follows a certain pattern. And because it follows a certain pattern is why we can get better at it, right? So if you take unofficial material that doesn't follow that pattern, you're messing up your ability to do better as a result. Right. So use accurate material. And there are also resources out there that have very close to accurate material. College Pandas thing is one of them. I think that personally, I really enjoy College Pandas grammar portions because they, one, explain all the skills that are explicitly tested. But on top of explaining all the skills that are explicitly tested, they talk specifically about like questions that might come up and in the idea how they might come up, right? And the questions that they have specifically are not like anything particularly useful or particularly different, but the idea is that they show you how they will come up, and that's why I like it. Not because it's like accurate practice, but because it just copies the idea of how it will come up, right? So that's like one of the resources that I really like. um Other than that, the QASs, right, that I talked about that are difficult to find, I actually have a bunch of them like stored on my computer, but you know, it's like not like I'm not allowed to technically give that away because it's property of College Board, and you just have to scour online to find it, right? Khan Academy has extremely good practice. I would say that the SAT Suite question bank is really good if you're looking for one specific kind of skill to practice on, and obviously practice exams, right? Any College Board official resource is accurate material. Use it. The books that they sell, you know, you can use that if you want to. That should be your main focus, right? And also practice based on your constraint. The main idea, as I talked about before, right, is if you don't know the concepts, right, then you have to learn them, right? Learn them on Khan Academy, learn them with College Panda, learn them with essentially anything that teaches you the exact concepts that are on the SAT, right? So you have to know what those concepts are, which are on all listed on Khan Academy, and know if someone is teaching them accurately, which I also trust Khan Academy. I've used it. I like College Panda for that as well. For math skills, like pretty much everyone on YouTube teaches math accurately. No one is teaching you incorrect math on YouTube if it's like a popular video, right? So if you struggle with time or complicated questions, right, with time specifically, what you need to do is just practice volume. Your volume and the amount of work that you do is going to improve your like speed, right? Because the more you do, the faster you get. And it's just a slow process and you just need to stick with it. You just need to keep doing it. That's how you improve speed, right? But for complicated questions, you need to progressively overload the types of complexity, right? So this is most applicable to math, where you see like an easy version of a question and a harder version of the same concept of question. If you don't know how to apply it to that harder one, you just haven't reached that skill yet, and you need to do slightly easier problems and level that up. Again, Khan Academy, beautiful for that. Completely free. I love Khan Academy. That's why I recommend it so much in almost every single video, because it's that good of a resource, right? Do more, score more, right? The essential idea of volume. My last video talked about the specific things of how you improve on the SAT. So I highly recommend you reference that right after this, because it's going to show you the exact things that you do to improve on the SAT. And it goes into the concepts that I touch on here in way more depth, right? The volume is the most, like, it's the most important thing. I explain what volume is specifically in that video, but essentially it's just how much you do, right? It's a bit more complicated than that, but it's how much you do. And if you do more, you're going to score more, right? And if you do more and you do more effectively than a person who does more but doesn't do it effectively, you're going to maximize your score way more than that person who doesn't do as much as you and doesn't do effective practice, right? Habits. Make a habit, right? But just do it daily, right? Just commit to doing something daily. And if you have 1 to 2 months left, if you think 1 hour a day is good enough, then you are probably not going to get the score that you want. 1 hour a day is complete garbage, not because it's 1 hour a day. Maybe that's all you can really afford to practice, right? A lot of people have extremely busy schedules with sports and school, APs, everything. I understand that, right? But it's the idea that people say, I'm going to do 1 hour a day. And that's the issue. If you have less than 2 months, you should do as much as you possibly can. Don't do 2 hours a day. Don't do 3 hours a day. Do as much as you possibly can every day, right? And make sure by the end, while you've taken your final SAT, you can be like, okay, I am proud of what I've done. I did as much as I possibly can, right? If you do as much as you possibly can, up your amount of volume as much as you can, do the effective practice techniques and figure out exactly what you're supposed to be working on at what specific type of question, what type of skill, your score is going to be so much higher than a person who doesn't do any of those things, which is most SAT takers, right? If you do more practice, your score will be higher. So the question is, how much higher do you want your score to be? Effectively, here's how you break down time, right? So you're going to try to take practice exams at least once or twice a week. The main idea is that you want to review though, right? So 60% should be review, 40% should be taking questions. And the ideology behind that is that taking questions is like the diagnosis of the problem. Reviewing is where you find the cure, right? The cure to get to a better like score and get that question correct. So questions are effectively diagnosing where you are. It's just like testing, right? Literally testing. And the review is how you actually improve. So do the review to figure out what things that you need to improve on and then work on those, right? Because review is not only practicing the type of questions based on your exams, but review is also like going over your like old things and then practicing even more questions based on that, right? So it's a combination of going over the exam and practicing, which is review, and the testing is the actual test portion, right? So try to take practice exams. Start today. If you don't commit to starting today, the chance that you're going to actually do this is like pretty much zero, right? Go forth with this today, or if it's like really late at night, go forth with it like tomorrow. Commit to doing it within the next 2 days, like committing to this pattern of doing as much as possible, or the chance that you're ever going to actually use this framework and get the score that you actually want so you can go to the college that you actually want, so you can have the life that you actually want, is going to be zero. I'm giving out SAT community scholarships. The deadline for that is October 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. So basically, there's 2 days left, and I'm opening applications to my community. If you've watched any other videos of mine, you know, like in my community, I have those like QASs that I talked about inside of there. You can get one-on-one help with me like at any time. So you can leave a message in the board, or we can hop on a call almost any time. And basically, you can ask me any questions, and we record all the lectures that I give and all the question answer sessions that I give, and we put it on so you can watch it at any time. And there's also many resources in there that you can use. And there's a whole community of people that are keeping you accountable, essentially figuring out like, you know, if you've done well, like if you're continuing to do well, like it's an opportunity to be in this community for free. So basically a link in the description to apply. I'm only accepting 10 people and I've gotten a lot of applications. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the person who's actually going to be able to take advantage of this, who shows that they're interested in improving their score and they want it, and they don't just want it because it's free. They want it because they can actually improve their score with it. That's the type of person I'm looking for. If you can demonstrate that, that's who I'm going to accept. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you learned something today.